think the less prepared is the better.
I agree. Okay.
So this one is for you, Air Commander. If you don't see it now, then we're recording it later.
Let's start off stage and come on stage as directed by Graham.
Okay, so Alex.
Yeah.
Do you need to read dialogue?
Is someone recording?
There's a little bit of dialogue.
Okay.
Does they probably need that?
No, it's okay. I'll just tell him. Alex, you're gonna wander in, doing your stab and hook.
Do stabbing buses.
Alex hummed to himself under his breath. The infectious little tune had a way of sneaking up on you sideways, and he barely even noticed it anymore. As an afterthought, he glanced around him at the rows of empty seats. All it'd take was one hysterical old woman overhearing him and calling the cops to make his day way more complicated than it needed to be. Luckily, it seemed he had the bus to himself. He pulled his military surplus coat tighter around him and tried rubbing his hands to keep warm. Victoria felt a lot colder than he remembered, even for winter. There was snow on the ground outside, and his breath had already fogged up the window beside him.
This is disturbingly accurate to right now.
It had been summer since the last time he flew in to visit the Loading Ready Run crew. Then came the road trip where they all piled into that aging yellow school bus and drove down to Comic-Con. Living in such close proximity for so long was an experience in and of itself. Running out of gas on the highway, shotgunning energy drinks, and narrowly avoiding a glimpse of Morgan's... No, goddammit, just no. Some things had come too close for comfort. He grimaced and tried to block out the memory. Instead, he focused on the brighter side of things. Things back in the heat of San Diego lulled him into missing his stop. Oh, bus is your line.
Oh, bus.
When the bus next pulled away from the curb, Alex was left standing in an unfamiliar part of town. He turned on the spot to try and take in his surroundings, pausing only to give a passing child the fisheye. I think you should give the chat the fisheye.
What's the stink eye?
Hey, kid. Where am I?
He smiled in satisfaction as the youngster clutched at his mother's hand out of fear. Some things never got old. A buzzing in his coat pocket prompted him to check his phone. On the phone was Morgan. Alex says, hello?
Hello?
To which Morgan responds, behind you, dumbass.
Behind you, dumbass.
Alex turned and there he was, trying to flag him down from the window of what looked like a Greasy Spoon cafe. He'd called Alex earlier that morning and asked him to meet the rest of the crew at a diner nearby. It wasn't one of their usual haunts so far as he knew, and QVs would have been easier, but Morgan hadn't bothered explaining, which was typical, really. Once inside, Alex confirmed his initial impressions of the place. Definitely not somewhere you could complain about finding a pube in your sandwich. Still looked cheap, and the manliness was in direct proportion to costliness at a time like this. He slid into the booth opposite Morgan. They seemed to be the only two crew members present. Alex, you have a line of dialogue.
Where's Graham and the others? Didn't you all leave together?
Morgan shifted uncomfortably. He wore a plaid button-down shirt with the top open to expose a few...
What is going on?
with the top open...
I'm out of here.
Inches of pale collarbone.
It's too late now.
Stop it! Wait. Stop describing right now!
He hadn't shaved, and his hair was the same tassel mop as it always was. Well, despite this, Alex had to admit that Morgan was probably one of the more attractive guys on the LRR team.
Is this Alex Morgan slash?
Just noticing it didn't mean anything. An artist needed to be aware of this sort of thing objectively. Morgan, that's your first line there.
Not really.
Then what's going on?
Something wasn't right. Whatever else, Morgan wasn't the type to shy away from an issue. He might have been faking it for comedic effect, but after seeing him act in film after film, Alex was pretty sure he could tell the difference. Morgan.
What do you mean? I just needed someone to talk to.
Before Alex had time to react, Morgan reached across the table and touched his hand. The gentleness in that touch surprised him more than anything else. It surprised him enough that he did not immediately pull away. The highlighted one.
Yes, okay. What do you mean?
Morgan chewed his lower lip as if trying to find the right words.
Oh dear.
I've been thinking a lot, actually, ever since the road trip. I couldn't bring it up with Bill or Graham because I know they wouldn't take it seriously. I mean, you saw that video we did in season 3, right? I'd make a pretty terrible homosexual.
Alex felt the pit of his stomach lurch, if he'd meant what he thought it did. But no, this couldn't be real. Morgan was screwing with him, and putting on a better performance than he'd thought possible. That guilty, hand-dog demeanor, the feigned insecurity, that pleading look in his eyes when he watched for Alex's reactions. He found himself laughing almost without meaning to.
Oh wow! You seriously just scared the crap out of me there. Really though, where's the others?
Morgan let go of his hand. Alex had actually forgotten about it in the heat of the moment, but he seemed to be reaching a decision.
I couldn't do this someplace people would know me. I'm being serious here. Watch.
Alex sat helpless and unable to move as Morgan stood to lean over the table. His disbelieving laughter died on his lips. A dozen voices in the background fell silent, and as many pairs of eyes watched Morgan kiss him.
There's just over a dozen people here.
Do it.
Aww.
Their silence continued even when Morgan pulled away to sit back down. He grinned a little self-consciously.
There, believe me now?
And it is at this point that the author realized how creepy the project had gotten.
Ta-da!
I'm really impressed.
The plaid button-down shirt. I can't handle that. That is
And the weather.
I think
The
I-
weather was spot
I
on.
just assume they've edited that recently.
no, they haven't.
That is exactly...
That hasn't been touched in like
But
years.
I read it a year ago at least.
Yeah.
Who wrote that?